When I was finishing my last year of high school, focusing on my HSCs and whatnot, I feel like I put so much time and effort into trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And to 17-year-old me at the time, that essentially meant trying to find the best degree at the best university. I mean, I don't blame myself. I was a 17-year-old kid. I had no life experience. I knew I liked tech-related stuff, so I figured engineering might be a good pick. I went to university open days. I talked to people who were in university. I talked to friends of friends. I talked to my parents' friends. And essentially, I got a whole bucket of advice, which, unbeknownst to me at the time, was actually quite poor. In fact, I got so anxious about picking the wrong degree at the wrong university, I kind of went berserk and let my anxiety take over me. All this positive advice that I received from so many people, at the end of the day, it wasn't realistic. It was just positive. That's it. It wasn't an accurate perspective on what studying engineering was actually going to be like. I was so excited about starting university. I was so excited to make new friends, study some really cool subjects, make some really cool things, do this, do that, blah, 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 blah. And then I got there and I was like, yeah, nah. When I was studying university, I really wished I had someone telling me the reality of what studying engineering is actually going to be like. But more importantly, I wished I had someone telling me what I'm getting myself into. Which brings me to why I'm making this video. I'm making this for anyone who's considering engineering, whether in your final year of high school, or you just started, or you're considering transferring. Hopefully this helps someone out there, even if it helps one or two people, this video has done its job. But essentially I'm making it because I don't want you watching or anyone else watching to go through the same amount of disappointment and disheartening that I did when I first started studying engineering. Welcome imposter syndrome. Put yourself in a room where you are the dumbest. And by dumbest, not meaning that you're dumb, but where you have the most to learn. If you feel you're the smartest in the room, there's a good chance that you probably don't belong there, unless you're a teacher or a tutor. You probably don't belong there because the chances of you learning something there are very, very slim. As a student trying to get ahead, you want to behave like a sponge, soaking up all the knowledge of your professors, your tutors, and even some of your peers. Realistically, at some point in your engineering career, or any career by the way, whether it's an internship or at a class, you're going to question yourself, why am I here? How did I get here? Why do I feel like I'm the dumbest person in this room? Now here's the thing, that line of questioning shouldn't be seen as an insecurity, but instead approached as an opportunity to learn. Cool, great, you got that internship, you got that tutor role that you've been wanting for years. You managed to get there, but now it's time to level yourself and upskill your knowledge to the average knowledge level of everyone else in that room. Honestly, there's no better place to be than to be the dumbest person in the room. And by dumb, you're not dumb, you're just not on the same level of knowledge as everyone else. Being that position in that room means you have the least to lose and the most amount to learn. If you're feeling like the people surrounding you are way ahead of you and they're miles ahead of you, let me tell you a secret. People in uni love to show off their successes whilst hiding their losses. Whether they finished an assignment early or they understand a very difficult topic that no one else does, or they got a certain mark in a report, or they got a certain internship. Hearing other students only talk about their successes whilst hiding their losses is something I personally came across a lot in my engineering career. It also took me a long time to understand that everyone's career is full of ups and downs, and a person showing me just their ups is not an accurate representation of what they're actually going through. What you see and hear from everyone else about their own life is never a true and accurate representation of what they've actually been through. And what's most important is that you shouldn't be using someone else's words of their successes to put yourself down. You are all in the same boat of having some highs where you understand something and then some lows where you're completely lost. If you're able to bear the temporary discomfort of imposter syndrome, then there truly is no limit for you. Okay, next point. Don't rely on your classes to teach you technical skills in depth. One of the main issues I've found in my degree as a biomedical engineering major is the lack of technical skill development we get in our courses. Of the course subjects I've had to take over my degree, I found that we spend a lot of time focusing on the problems, what current solutions exist to those problems, and what improvements can be made. But we're rarely given the opportunity to actually go out into the field and test our knowledge, or at the very least test our problem solving skills. Part of it is due to the fact that my degree is very health focused, and so it reduces the amount of opportunities we have to actually go and test what we can make. Because if we make something faulty, there's a very good chance it's going to hurt someone, and we don't want that. I mean, for example, I literally just finished a class on a topic on the area of tissue engineering, which essentially is a study of creating artificial tissues for damaged organs. It's pretty cool. But the entire scope of this subject, and I only ever realized this at the end of the semester, was that the whole subject's point was exposing students to real-world problems without ever giving us an opportunity to go into a lab and physically experiment and try to come up with a solution of our own, or at least use our knowledge that we're learning in the lectures and apply it physically in a lab. By the end of the semester, each weekly lecture had followed the same structure. We have this problem, we need this solution, and we need you students to help us get there. but none of us in that class were actually practicing how to make tissue engineered solutions. We were just learning the theory. So in some cases, you might be learning the theory about certain engineering principles, but you might not actually be given the opportunity to go out and practice what you learn in the classroom. And that is exactly something I wish I had known going into biomedical engineering, that some courses were going to be heavily theory-based, when I would have benefited probably from a degree that had a more hands-on approach. But if you're thinking about taking biomed engineering, don't stress, because that's not the case for all courses. There are still so many resources that are accessible to you that you can access. I mean, it's 2025, learning has never been more easy for anyone. And that actually brings me to my next point. Classes are for exposure to a topic, but true learning is optimal when taken into your own hands. In other words, self-learning is king. This is actually one of the biggest mistakes I probably made as an engineering student, right from the very start. I put a lot of faith into the university system to teach me how to make an Iron Man suit. I know, it sounds silly and stupid, but I'm not kidding. That high level of faith in an external body translated to a lack of proactiveness in me. If I knew somebody else was going to help me and somebody else was going to get me to where I wanted to be, why would I never need to be proactive or change anything or go an extra mile for myself? Newsflash, don't rely on anyone else or any institute to teach you what you can teach yourself. So you're probably wondering, what's the point of going to university if I can just teach myself everything? There is still a point to going to uni. I mean, first of all, like expectations, your parents might not love you, you might lose all your friends. No, there's still value in going to class when you know how to balance between learning from the university and learning from yourself. So going back to my original point, what worked for me as an engineering student is to approach my classes simply as an exposure to the topic, with maybe a bit of practice. Maybe it's like a simulation course or a coding class. Going in with the mindset to each lecture, to each tutorial, to each workshop, going in with the mindset that I'm here to just be exposed to problems and just to be exposed to potential solutions. That mindset allowed me to fully develop my problem-solving skills in my own time, at my own pace. For example, I took all of my coding knowledge, which isn't very thorough, and it's also all in Python, and I built my own website, which, if you don't know, doesn't really use Python. I use HTML, CSS, and JS. Having never programmed in any of those languages before, I taught myself how multiple languages are used to sort of layer into a single project. In this case, it was just a website. I also learned how languages differ from one another. None of those things I would have ever learned if I just stayed in the lanes of my first year programming course. If you truly want to get good at a technical skill, you need to be willing to go beyond the expectations of your classroom. Alright, build your own projects. Obviously, building your own projects is good for your own skill development, but it's also one of the best ways an engineering student can open doors for themselves, especially if you're looking for a very technical heavy role in the future as an intern or as a job. Engineers are defined as individuals who build, design, and maintain engines, machines, or structures. Let your results speak for your credibility. If you build projects, no matter how DIY or janky it is, that shows your passion and curiosity, which are qualities employers are much more likely to hire you for than a first-year student who got a 98 wham in their first year of engineering. The key here is to work with what you have. If you have no physical equipment and you want to make something that is physical, go down to your local tech store and find out how cheap parts really are. They are very, very cheap, like dirt cheap. Alright, next point. The needing experience to get experience conundrum. Currently, there's a huge market recession with AI taking over jobs. I'm sure you've seen the news and social media. Yet the supply of graduates is anything but slowing down. A lot of people are struggling to find full-time jobs, part-time jobs, casual jobs, even internships. Personally, I reached out to over 100 people this year, cold emailed 90% of them, applying just for one internship with any of them, only to receive a handful of replies, more than half of which were rejections. But in this entire storm cloud of problems affecting everyone around you, there's a silver lining. You are an engineering student, or about to be. I don't know who's watching this, I'm sorry. What I mean to say is, and this adds on to my point earlier of making your own projects, is that you as an engineering student can quite literally make your own experience. One of the biggest generational movements that's happening right now across university students, dropouts, and even some high school students is giving a big fuck you to all of the dream, lucrative jobs that just aren't accessible anymore, and instead making our own work. If you consistently build on your projects, no matter how small it is, whether it's something like a website or it's like a little robot, or you're trying to create a service that solves problems for you or solves problems for other people, you can build up a portfolio of your work and use that as experience of your technical expertise, showing that you are more than competent. Alright, next point. Know when to skip your lectures. You've probably heard both ends of the spectrum. Skip all of your lectures, they're all useless. Go to your lectures, they're very, very important. Personally, I would say knowing when a lecture is going to benefit you and when it's not going to benefit you is a skill worth having. That means looking ahead of time at the content being presented and knowing your own work ethic and capacity well enough to retain the information from that lecture in the same amount of time or less. My reasons for skipping lectures change every year. One year it used to be because they were boring and I wouldn't be paying attention in the lectures. Another because I personally could get through the information a lot quicker than the time slot we had for that lecture. And then another because the person presenting or the lecturer was just not a great teacher. At the end of the day, if you're going to end up teaching yourself most of the content after attending the lecture, going to the lecture is probably not worth it. And it's definitely not worth your time. Having said that, it is very situational based and you need to be confident in your own ability to get through the lecture content on your own if you don't attend. Sometimes you also might need to skip lectures because you're sick on that day or you have an exam for another subject. There are also non-university related reasons for not going to lectures, but all of this comes back to how well you can manage your time and your workload. And that skill comes with time and practice and perseverance. Alright, we're getting a little bit motivational. Falling behind is okay. A common trait of a true engineering student is that they always fall behind on their content. You're being taught a lot of content, a lot of heavy content. Your degree is important. Falling behind lectures is more commonplace than you think, and my advice would be not to avoid it, although if you can, do it. But instead, try to be prepared for it. Have a system in place that allows you to catch up on work that you've missed as time efficiently as possible. For me, I use Notion to track all of my lectures, my assignments, my homework and my deadlines, and other topics that I need to revise so that when I do start to fall behind, it's very clearly organized on what I've fallen behind. I can see everything that I've fallen behind on. I can also see things that I need to do, what I'm doing, and what I've already done. I'm the kind of person that benefits greatly from having an organized system like that. And I'm sure that there are a ton of videos by other YouTubers who go through how to stay organized and how to stay on top of your work, which I will probably link in the description below. One of the benefits of having an organized system like that is that it helps you feel so much more supported when you do start to fall back, because you're prepared for it. You're not a bad student for falling behind. It's always about the next step you're going to take when something shit happens. And if you have just a little simple organized system to assist you when that time comes, all power to you. No one around you knows what they're doing either, and that's okay. In your university career, you're going to see the widest disparity that you've ever seen of people in your entire life. You're going to see cracked first year students with already 5 internships lined up. You're going to see a classmate whose dad is like the COO of Striker, the networking god with 1,000+ LinkedIn connections, the 4th year students who still have no idea what they're going to do with their life. You are in the prime time and space to be exploring so many different things, which is exactly what everyone else around you is doing. Everyone's exploring because no one knows what they truly want, just yet. I mean, think about it, there'd be no need to explore all of these hobbies or side hustles if people knew exactly what they wanted to do with their lives. In this sense, everyone else is no different from you. They're all just trying to figure out what they want to do with their life. So it really just doesn't make sense to be comparing yourself to people who are in a space where they're just experimenting and trying so many different things. Looking to people around you and thinking, oh, she got an internship that is my dream internship. She might not even want it. She might not even enjoy it. She might have just applied for the sake of applying. You don't know what they're going through and you don't have a full picture of their story. Trust me when I say this, comparing yourself to others in university is a surefire way to break down your mental health. Alright, this is probably going to be one of my favorite tips. Knowing how to network well. You've probably heard the saying that your net worth is your network. Network is your net worth. A billion times. But no one really shares explicitly how to network well. So I thought I'd break it down today. Earlier this year, I emailed 100 people through LinkedIn, through STEM events, professors, friends of friends, or mutuals of mutuals, wanting to learn more about the work they do and if they had any opportunities for me to work under the guidance of themselves. I had a handful of people respond to me, but mostly rejections. And from that experience alone, there are a few key things that I want to share. First, when you network with the intent of curiosity to the person that you're speaking to. As a student, you're learning a lot in the classroom, but there is still a wide gap between the theory that you learn in the class and what actually goes in the day-to-day life of people who are working the job of the degree that you're studying. Start the conversation with the unknowns about the person you're talking to. What do you do for work? Oh, simulations expert. That's cool. What are you simulating? So you spend most of your time simulating. Do you do anything else? What's the ultimate goal of your project? How did you get into this job? Driving the conversation with questions does 2 things. It gives you a better understanding of what the person does, which helps you as a student. And two, it shows them that you are interested in their role, and more importantly, you're interested in them. That is what makes people remember you. And if you can do that, then you can say that you've made a true connection. Second, and to kind of elaborate on that point as well, the key to exceptional networking is knowing how to honestly express yourself. I found the most fruitful conversations and connections I've made with people 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years older than me is when I was being most true to myself and the problems I was having at that time. Talking about things like my anxiety and my inability to choose what I want to do with my career after I graduate, where I want to go in the BME field, whether I should do things like a PhD or go into a startup, and managing your career as you grow up to a person that ends up getting a mortgage and a wife and a family and kids. All of those questions and all of those themes helped me develop a deeper connection with each person that I was talking to. And more importantly, it allowed me to get rich advice from a person that I probably wouldn't have been able to get from anywhere else. You sure as heck can't get that from the internet. The reason this is one of the best things you can do when you network is because it solidifies your connection with that person as you trade in problems of your own like anxiety for the advice, the rich advice from people who have already walked the path that you are currently walking. People are willing to help. You just need to be courageous enough to ask for it. I feel like I could go way more into the depth of how to network properly, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to keep it short and move on to my next point. If you think you would benefit from a proper guide, also let me know down in the comments below, because that is something I'm more than happy to make. Rotate your team role for team-based subjects. Your engineering degree isn't just purely about developing technical roles, it's also about learning how to practice and communicate your role in a team-based environment. As part of your engineering degree, you're definitely going to have subjects where you're going to need to work in a team. Usually in these teams, the goal is to come up with a novel solution to a given sample problem. And each person in your team will have a different role, such as like a CAD role, or an electronics role, or someone who's going to program and code everything, and so on and so on. Especially in your early years, you want to rotate your personal role across your differing subjects and your differing team projects. Doing so gives you a taste of what that role actually does, and it can give you a little bit of a perspective of what that job might look like as a future full-time employee. Plus, it's a passive way of building up your skill set and making you a more well-rounded engineer. If you're fresh out of high school, seriously consider taking a gap year or at least a gap semester. This is something I had strongly wished I'd done when I first started university. First of all, having a break from learning as you transition from high school to university really sets you up for your ability to maintain your learning skill and maintaining your learning drive as you progress through your degree. Taking a break to me at the time was unheard of, and no one around me seemed to be doing it. So naturally, I followed everyone else and went straight to university. Another reason I wished I'd taken a gap year was to give myself the confidence in knowing I'd picked the right degree to study at university. Students in year 12 are already put under a lot of pressure. You've got to perform very well for your HSC or your IB or whatever your final exams are. And to make sure that you get the marks that you need to get into the degree or the field that you want to study at the university that you want to study. That's already a lot of pressure. Now try adding the weight of trying to figure out what you want to do post high school, what you want to do at university, and what field you want to go in. It can get a little bit daunting and too much sometimes. Having a gap semester or a gap year to save up some money and to go travel will do absolute wonders for your mental health. It'll help with your relationships, and most importantly, it'll help you decide what you truly want to do. To sort of close this video off, the reality is that whatever degree you pick, whatever university you pick, whatever country you choose to study in, just as there will be positives, there will also be drawbacks. And that is something I wish I had the courage to have sought for when I was deciding what I want to do at university. If this video changes your mindset or helps relieve some of your feelings about university, even if it's just one person, then this video has done its job. I know I've yapped a lot and covered a lot, and trust me, there are still so many other things that I could have covered, but I really just picked the things that I felt were most personal to me and I figured were most pressing and weren't really being discussed by anyone else online. If you have any questions or wanted to add on to any of the points that I've mentioned, feel free to comment down below so that other students can read that as well. You can also reach out to me directly. I've linked my Instagram in the description box below. Drop a like if you enjoyed it and consider subscribing. And always remember, the greatest asset of any engineering student is their ability to correctly diagnose the true cause of issue. See you guys.